welcome to Senior Speak New Hampshire on your Concord TV, sponsored by AARP. I am Karen Ulmer Dorsch, the producer host of this program. And the focus of the program has always been on the health, wealth, and self of Americans and all of us as we age. That being said, today our focus is going to be a little bit more on health than the other two, because we're going to be talking about driver safety and the program that AARP offers on this. But the session today is going to be twofold, because I have also with me a volunteer who is extremely active in all of our programs at AARP, and he's going to tell us about how that has affected his life. And then we will discuss the driver safety program. And my guest, whom I'm delighted to have with me today, is Tim McCool. And Tim, will you please give people a little bit of what you did prior to joining AARP, and we'll get started.
Well, again, my name is Tim McCool. I actually got my start in volunteering for AARP back in my second job after I retired as a trooper from the Kansas Highway Patrol. I was working for the Kansas Traffic Safety Resource Office. And at that time, I was teaching some defensive driving classes, but we want to expand our focus into our mature operators, our senior drivers. So at that time, I went ahead and got trained to be a smart driver instructor. And from there got into lots of other things too that I'll explain a little bit more later in the program. But that was my start. Like I said, I had already been teaching some defensive driving classes. There's three major classes across the United States. Again, for our senior drivers, there's AARP's class, which does have a focus on our senior drivers, but AAA, or the American Automobile Association, has a class, and so does the National Safety Council. I've taught all three of those at one time or other in my career, because I did safety and education for the Kansas Highway Patrol for about 13 years.
And this was your career, is that right, Tim?
It was. I spent 29 years in law enforcement, about half of that out working the road, and the other half I was the safety sergeant for Northeast Kansas. So I covered about a sixth of the state, but yet I had about a quarter of the population, because you get out in Western Kansas and people are kind of few and far between.
Yes, they are. Both of us are native Kansans, by the way, viewers. So we have enjoyed our life as it has moved into New Hampshire.
It has. It has.
And Tim, what interested you in pursuing this particular career?
Well, just not necessarily the job, but it was just being able to get in with people and trying to help them to become better drivers overall. And that started way back in the beginnings of my career in law enforcement. Most police officers don't talk about it, but we really don't like going out and writing tickets. But, our job is to enforce the laws that are set by our state legislators in order to try and keep everybody doing the same things and driving safely.
And what brought you to New Hampshire?
Well, it was a grandbaby. My daughter and her husband lived down in Hartford, Connecticut. And so they had a baby. And so when my wife and I were sitting out in Kansas, and we were, pretty well assured that they weren't going to be moving out towards Kansas. So if we wanted to be able to interact with them and be around for the grandbaby, it was move. And so at the point where my wife hit retirement age, I was about 7 years ahead of her. So that's when I retired from patrol and then went into traffic safety, the Kansas Traffic Safety Office, spent 7 years there. And then when she hit retirement eligibility, we decided to pick up roots and move.
Aha. And so the daughter lives in Connecticut?
Yep. She's in a suburb.
And what made you choose New Hampshire over Connecticut?
You know, we're not big city people. We both grew up kind of in small towns. And so in visiting the area, we visited and stayed with she and her husband and the grandbaby down in Connecticut. But we traveled around quite a bit, and you know, up into Massachusetts, in Vermont and New Hampshire, and really just kind of fell in love with New Hampshire. So with all the different little lakes and everything and the mountains, and most especially, I guess, the trees, that's the big thing. If you got to Kansas and you're driving through Kansas, there is not the amount of forest cover that they have around here.
You're absolutely right. One of my older sisters, right after we moved here to New Hampshire, I always felt that I should have been born in New England because I love history, and this is where the history of the world, the country began. Sure. And so as soon as I could, I got over here. But my sister came to visit, and we would, of course, every time we had visitors, we took them everywhere in the state because we wanted them to see how beautiful the state was. And her comment on the drives was, when we would get finished, she'd say, "Well, all you ever see are trees."
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
To a Kansan, that was sort of what she was seeing, I think. So yep. What encouraged you to start volunteering for AARP?
Well, again, I actually started doing that as part of the job at the Traffic Resource Office. But, you know, formed a lot of friendships with the AAR people, not only in Kansas, but up on the national level. And they kind of got me into some different things too. Not only the defensive driving with the smart driver class, but also a program called CarFit, which is and I'm an instructor for that. As a matter of fact, I'm the only instructor in New Hampshire for that. And that's, I'm sorry, the cat's playing behind me.
Wonderful. There. I love the cat. I love the cat.
But CarFit is again, a way to help our senior drivers. It's trying to fit them better to their vehicle. And you know, doing like mirror adjustment things and and seat adjustment. You know, my wife and I are kind of really different. I'm 6'6", she's 5'3". So, you know, when we get into cars, I have seats all the way back, all the way down. She has seats all the way forward, all the way up. Yeah. And so, you know, the name of the game is to be able to safely control the pedals and steer the vehicle and all that stuff. So again, working with our senior drivers, trying to make sure that they can safely reach the pedals or all the instruments that they're going to need as they operate that motor vehicle is a pretty smart affair. So it's a nice little checkup. It was a program that was developed in conjunction not only with AARP, but also with AAA, which is highly unusual because generally AAA and AARP are competitors. You know, they both are, but they cooperated that. And then along with that is the American Association of Occupational Therapists. And they were a big moving force there. And that's part of that checkup event is we fill out a nice little checklist, and if somebody's having problems, not being able to see out of their car good, or not being able to touch the pedals, or maybe because as we all get older, you know, we're not like a 20-year-old anymore.
Right.
And sometimes we have mobility issues, and that is right in the wheelhouse of occupational therapists. That's what they do, is they work with people if they have some mobility issues. And that CarFit program is set up to not only check them and work them with the mirrors and seat adjustment, but again, to have them have the ability to work with an OT right as they're checking out and find out like local resources, where to go for some help and things like that. It's really a pretty neat program.
And Tim, you're telling me that this is offered in New Hampshire?
Well, unfortunately, there's not a lot of car fit technicians up here, but we're working on trying to change that. I actually had a conversation with not only our state coordinator, Nancy Hacking, here in New Hampshire, but also Andrew from Maine. And they have been in touch with the lady who is the state coordinator for Vermont. So we're trying to combine the 3 states to be able to share some resources and try and get some people trained on that.
Wow, that's great. That's great to hear. So talk a little bit about, tell us about driver safety here in New Hampshire, and especially what is happening with it now that we're in the virtual world.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly it. You know, when the pandemic hit, AARP, which is again concerned with all of their customers, you know, they put a stop to in-person type trainings, not only for driver safety, but also for the car fit, and all that's on hold and will be. We've been through I think 4 different changes of when we were talking about we might be able to go back and do in-person stuff, and that might still continue. I mean, it all depends upon how the country is doing with the pandemic. The good thing is, though, they're just not done away with. There's virtual of it. There is an online course you can go ahead and take for driver safety and still end up getting a certificate. I'm going to toss out the AARP driver safety. That's all one word, no spaces, .org. You can go there and actually sign up for the online course and complete it online. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's a virtual class.
And Tim, is there a fee?
There is. AARP went almost 10 years without raising fees for the in-person classes. But, you know, right in 2020, you know, it takes money to develop curriculum and have infrastructure, even for the online class. So unfortunately, the fees did go up. There's a $20 fee for AARP members, and that bumps up to $25 for non-members.
Well, that's very reasonable.
It's a little different for the online class because again, they've got to pay for, you know, hosting a website and all like that. So it's a little bit higher. It's like 26 something or other. So for the online stuff. So
but that's so reasonable, really.
It is. So the benefits of the class. And as an instructor, I can tell you, every time I taught the class, it was really neat to sit there and listen to people's different viewpoints on everything. And it's a nice refresher. Yes, we all went through driver's ed, probably at one time or other, but it's nice to get a refresher. And in New Hampshire is what we call an 8-hour state. They've got some other states where it's only a 6-hour class. And even a couple of states at 4 hours, but 8 hours, there's a lot of material. It's a great refresher. So it refreshes your concept of how to correctly handle those different traffic situations you might find yourself into.
And Tim, so it's an 8-hour or course, but is that straight through? Or how do they break it up?
Well, in the in-person classes, of course, obviously, I don't carry a classroom with me, so we have host locations around the state, senior citizen centers, libraries, the such like, and so I basically try and work with those host locations, as do all the instructors here in the state, and we've got 15, 16, 17 instructors across the state, all the way from up by the Canadian border, all the way down. I think, well, there's one instructor, she's in Nashua, And in the southwest part of the state, I'm over here, and we have another instructor that teaches in Keene at the Senior Citizen Center. So we're spread out throughout the state. A lot of our instructors will work with local hospitals, because a lot of hospitals will have senior driver groups or senior groups, and things like that. And so it's really good to go ahead and work with those types of groups. I mean,
Right.
it's a built-in audience for AARP.
Sure.
So not only do you get the benefit of the educational aspect of it, input from other drivers that are in the class with you. Most major insurance companies, if you complete a defensive driving class, they will give you a break on the cost of your vehicle insurance. I'm a State Farm person, and my agent, I provide him that the defensive driving certificate is basically good for about 3 years. And so for those 3 years, I get a small break in my insurance, more than enough to go ahead and pay for the cost of the class, by the way.
And so that would be an incentive for a person who is not 50 plus or older to take the course. Is that correct?
That is correct. It doesn't matter what age you are. And I said the AARP class has a focus on mature operators, but the core basics of the class are defensive driving, no matter what age you are. So it's a good class. I've had teenagers take the class, sit through the class with their parents and grandparents. They had 3 generations sit through the class together. I mean, I'm not wanting to be critical here, but schools are stretched as it is to try and get enough curriculum in. As a matter of fact, most schools in Kansas don't even teach driver's ed anymore.
Wow.
It's not even part of it. They just don't have the time because they've got other curriculum that they've got to go ahead and cover. So if you want, I mean, most states mandate a certain amount of classroom hours to go ahead and complete in order to get a driver's license, but it's pretty minimal. And so this 8-hour class is pretty thorough. It covers a whole lot of stuff. There's no in-person going out and driving, but it's all classroom.
And so you said that Kansas no longer offers it. Do you know whether New Hampshire has driver's ed in their programs?
Some school districts do, some school districts don't. Had a conversation with a New Hampshire state police officer, and what I saw in Kansas is happening pretty well nationwide. You're seeing some stuff is mandated and more important than other stuff, apparently. So
yeah. Well, the pandemic is showing us a lot of information about what we're lacking, and it might be that we'll find out they need to reinstate that too.
Yeah.
I certainly think that they need to really take a strong look at our vocational arts in schools. I think if we haven't learned during the pandemic how essential those people are, boy, I don't know what can teach us.
I have to agree with that. The vocations have not got a lot of emphasis. Again, not trying to be critical, but high school counselors and such like have been shuffling people off towards college. That's not for everybody.
No, it isn't.
I think our vocations, they need to get equal time, in my opinion.
Well, mine also. I've always felt that because I've had students that just were not wanting to be in college.
Yep.
And with the college debt being what it is, boy, I'll tell you, I think that we need to really revisit a lot of that stuff. Okay, so Tim, you are really active in our AARP because you are also in the Speakers Bureau, which I work with, and you're telling me about a new program, right?
Well, I actually just have spent about the last hour and a half on the computer. This is part of driver safety. It's called, Smart Driver Tech. So it's kind of, it's part of the driver safety aspect of it, but it can, in my opinion, it would probably be as popular a program as some of your Speakers Bureau classes have been. And I'm just getting my feet wet with your Speakers Bureau. So I am definitely not the expert on the Speakers Bureau. That's you. You're the one that helps run that. And I think all the classes, the home fit, the scams and all like that, those are great classes.
They are, but you're right. We could really use some of what you're doing again. So we'll have to look into that, won't we?
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing is that, there might be two different parts of AARP, but they're still part of AARP, and we can collaborate and go from that.
Exactly.
Yeah, the time that I just spent on the computer is Smart Driver Tech. So it's examining some of the newer technologies of cars that are coming out. And some of those, I mean, I'm driving an old car. I've got a 2010 Ford Edge. But does it have backup alarms? Yes, it does. So it's got a little bit. My wife's car, which is a 2014 Toyota RAV, she's got a lot more of the sensors built on the cars. But some of the other stuff that they're starting to see, some of those technologies have come out of the aerospace programs, and we're starting to see that incorporated into the cars. Smart cruise control. So it's got sensors in the front of the car, so you can set your cruise control at a speed, but as you come up behind another vehicle that is possibly going slower, you can set it to start slowing you down far away, a medium distance, a close distance. And it's the sensors and everything. They've even got technology to where, because parallel parking has never been a big favorite of a lot of the drivers out there, but you can come up and you hit a button and it measures the space and it will park your car for you. So it's a parking feature.
I'm going to have to take one of those courses again when I get a new car, because Zoom has already taken me beyond where I ever thought I would ever go.
Yeah. And
now that you're telling me what's happening, and I know this is happening in new cars. I think mine is a 2013 Honda. And, it has some things. In fact, it has probably more than I'll ever use.
Yeah.
But it's there if I need it. But,
some of it, like stability, built-in stability controls, got mandated way back in 2012. So you've got some of the newer safety features that way.
Yeah.
Some of it you can turn on and off. Some of it it's there, and you've got to learn to deal with it. My suggestion is, if somebody is contemplating buying a new car, would be to go ahead and take this SD Smart Driver Tech class. Yeah. There is a virtual online version that you can go through free of charge.
Wow.
And learn about some of these newer technologies before you go in to look at new cars, and just get an idea of what's out there and what's available, and start forming your own mind up to what you're looking for potentially. I mean, because some of this is built in and mandated by the federal government, and some of it is optional. And so you want to pay for something that you're probably not going to use. So that's why you want to educate yourself prior to putting yourself in the situation of going into a car place.
Right. Well, I can't tell you, Tim, how fortunate I think AARP is to have you have selected this particular group to volunteer for. You really are a fantastic asset to us, and I just thank you so much. And is there anything else you want to say about the course before we close?
Well, right now we're looking at September 1st for possibly starting to go back into in-person classrooms. in talking with a couple of other instructors, we're kind of questioning that. We actually probably think it's probably going to be closer to either winter time or the beginning of 2022.
Right.
But before we go back in, one of the great things again about AARP is that, you know, we've had all these host locations that we've used over the years. But before we can go back into in-person classrooms, those host locations are going to have to basically look at the CDC guidelines for keeping their classrooms as virus free as possible. And so, you know, we're not rushing back into the in-person stuff. We want to do it right because we don't want to put anybody into a situation where they would become sick.
That's true. And viewers, that is true about all of AARP's programs. None of us can go and do anything in person. And quite frankly, I think it might be 2022 before we are able to do that. Because as Tim has said, our deadlines just get further and further away. So keep wearing your mask, keep washing your hands, keep doing social distance and everything that's necessary, and please get vaccinated so that we can enjoy a new normal, which I'm sure it will be.
It will.
Tim, again, I thank you so much for being my guest today. And to all of you viewers, thank you for watching, and I hope you have found this interesting and informative as I have. And until then, until our next time, be good, do good, be one.